Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Blatstein, the physician founder of Physician Pre-Sentence Report Service. White collar sentencing mitigation solutions. My email is here. Phone 240-888-7778. So if you found yourself indicted facing prison, now's not the time to give up. And it's whether you're facing your indictment, your sentencing hearing, if you have a relative, family member, or someone you love. The website is pprsus.com. Please don't hesitate to reach out and call me should you have any questions. So we're going to get into cell phones. And jumping to the very end of this short YouTube, you don't want to use them. Because if you use a cell phone, and I'll be saying this again several times, and a phone number, they'll find the phone eventually. And if your phone number that's on that phone matches a phone number that's on your contact list, or if the feds or the Federal Bureau of Prisons calls numbers that are on that phone, and whoever answers the phone say, yes, we know someone who's at that prison, and they say your name, you could wind up with another charge. You could wind up being transferred to another prison. You could lose all your earned time credits from First Step Back. You could lose your good time credits. They may put you in the SHU or isolation for a period of time, and they may want to make you become a snitch. It's not a good thing. And so the best thing is just don't use anyone's cell phone. But why does this happen? We're going to start by saying is that several senators, both Republicans, Tom Cotton and Representative Dave Kustoff of Tennessee, they've introduced companion bills where they want to put cell phone jamming devices into prisons. The challenge is going to be is that the FTC says that they prohibit that. For whatever their reasons are, there's some sort of prohibition that they have to get through Congress and jump through these hoops. But there are real reasons why they don't want these cell phones in prisons. And what can that be? Some of the reasons that they talk about are going to be that they don't want to have any witness tampering. They don't want to create violence for one reason or another against another person outside of the prison. They don't want to create where they help bring contraband into prison, like other cell phones, drugs, knives, weapons. They just don't want that to happen. And so keeping the cell phones, although they're going to come into prison, they try and keep this limited. But regarding cell phones specifically, Walter Pavo has a great article that he writes regularly for Forbes magazine and says there's reasons why, reasonable people, good people stray to cell phones. And there's many reasons. When there's an ever increasing frequency of lockdowns within the federal prison system. And these can be, one, because there's a shortage of correction officers to monitor everyone. And what happens is that they then go and they take the teachers that are supposed to be teaching either the First Step Back classes or nurses that are supposed to be providing medical care, and now they're taking the sub in on doing correction duties. And even then, if there's not enough, again, individuals to provide safe, to walk the grounds, if you will, within the units, then they're going to wind up locking people down. If in fact you're in an area where there's lots of fog or there's raining or there's any kind of instability, there's going to be lots of lockdowns. If there's a incident at a higher security facility and you're in a satellite camp next to a higher security camp, everyone can be locked down. If there's fog, there's lockdown. And so if there's a lot of lockdowns in a facility, that's going to keep you from getting to First Step Back classes. It's going to keep you from having visits. You're not going to be getting into the TV room. You're not going to be getting into telephones. You're not going to be able to get into the computer rooms to do emails and to connect with the outside world. And so this solitude, a lot of people are just, it can get to you, especially if you've been in prison for short timers for a short period of time. And for long, people who've been in prison for a long time, that can also be a problem. I can tell you that I was in prison in 2006 and for a short period of time, but every time there was a lockdown at the higher security facility, I didn't know I was claustrophobic, but I figured that out pretty quickly. Now I was able to get my medical license back to practice medicine, but still, it is, well, I was never tempted to use the cell phone. And quite frankly, I never even saw any. I'm sure that they were there. And so, you don't want to be put in the position of doing something that's going to get rid of all the hard work and time that you've put into working hard to earn time credits towards an earlier release date to get good time credits, etc. You just don't want that. One of the possible ways that you can occupy your mind, because a lot of this is mental, is establishing a routine. And it's not going to be easy to establish a routine. One, if you've never done that before, and two, for sure, in a prison setting. But if you take a satellite view, as I call it, we each have a routine that we had before we went into prison, and that is that whether you sold drugs, you were a banker, you were a doctor, you were a lawyer, you were an auto mechanic, whatever you did, you were a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad. We all have had routines that we did. You got up in the morning, you got, shower, wash, dressed. You had kids, just get them ready for school. You had kids in college, you got made sure that they were high school, you made sure that they were getting ready for school. You went and did whatever chores you had to do, whatever errands you had to run. You went to your school, you went to work, whatever you did it every day. And this became a routine for you. It may not be a routine you liked, but it was a routine. If you had health insurance or you were lucky enough to have health insurance, life insurance, auto insurance, kind of you should have had if you were driving. All of these things were you consider automatic. The routines in prison, I'm going to say, is kind of like insurance. And part of the routine is going to be, hopefully you like to read. If you don't, maybe we can get you to develop a habit. And in reading, you can hopefully find books that you like that are books that are nonfiction books, but books that are on topics that you like. It may be business, it may be religion, it may be sports, it may be whatever the topic may be, astrology. It doesn't really matter. But find topics on different subjects and create a list. Softbacks are cheap, coming from Amazon, and then figure out two books a month for you to read and spread them out among family members and friends, literally with a calendar. And if the people are willing and you trust them to send them to you, starting 2 days before you arrive, so that in case you're put in lockdown right away, you're not going to be bored pulling your hair out and getting nervous. You'll have something to do. And then also, as soon as you get there, you can have someone send you there. It could be a logbook, a journal, a notebook. It needs to have some sort of writing in it so that you can keep a daily journal or notes or something on what you read and you do every day. And that includes things that you learn from these books. And it's kept, by the day, date, time of what you've done, what you read. If you're taking first step back classes, day, date, time of the class you attended, and who taught it. Also, day, date, time. If you have any interactions with the correction officer, after you have that interaction, you're going to write it down. Who it was, what it was about. Was it a good interaction or was it hostile? And you want to put down, if you had to do something, put down what that was. And then once you've done it, you want to write that down, because 6 months later, they may call you and say, did you do this? And if you hadn't, you're not going to remember, what you did or when, or this is going to be your insurance policy. They may say to you, you had a first step back class, 6 months earlier, we have notes that you didn't go. And trust me, that the Bureau of Prisons it's not the case manager or unit team's fault. They just have bad records. And they're not getting everything passed down from Grand Prairie, Texas, which is where they're supposed to be trained, to the staff in an organized fashion. So this is going to be your insurance policy. And keeping this all organized is going to be up to you. And everything coming from Amazon. But cell phone business, the people who are going to be renting the phones to you, this for them, it's a business. They have several $1,000s invested. So you don't want to rent it from them, because if you don't have the money, it's not going to be pretty. I don't want you to rent the phones from them. I don't want you to lose your good time credit. I don't want you to be accosted by the guards because they have a phone number that belongs to you on this cell phone. You shouldn't have to be put in this position. Hang out with individuals that mirror kind of who you are. No cell phones, please. I hope you found this YouTube helpful. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to listen, and stay safe. This is not the end of the world.